Today's sermon is titled 9 Extraordinary Insights from the Yellow Brick Road, to be delivered by John Tamiazzo. The sermon covers the following principles. It's a long list. Principle 1, the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Principle 2, justice, equity, and compassion in human relations. Principle 3, acceptance of one another and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations. Principle 4, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning. Principle 5, the right of conscience and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. John Tamiazzo, PhD, taught at Santa Barbara City College Adult Education for over 20 years, offering a variety of humanistic and spiritual psychology classes, health and wellness workshops, and love and intimacy seminars. He also was an instructor for UCSB's counseling certification program for 15 years, teaching courses in counseling skills and theories of counseling and psychotherapy. His distinguished professional background includes positions as program director for 3 community mental health and research centers in Southern California. Dr. Tamiazzo served as the executive director for 2 traumatic head and brain injury facilities on the Central Coast. John is also the author of 2 books and gives workshops on both. His books are Love and Be Loved, 8 Steps to Creating Intimacy and Finding the Love You Want, and the source of today's sermon, Returning to the Land of Oz, Finding Hope, Love, and Courage on Your Yellow Brick Road. John is currently the executive director of Showers of Blessing. For more information about John, you can visit his website, www.johntamiazzo.com. John.
Good morning, everyone. Such a pleasure having you here today. Would you like it?
Oh, no.
First, I do want to thank some very special people. It takes a lot of organization to put these Sunday sermons together. And Randy, Mary, Andy, Wayne, Nancy, Diane, Jan, thank you so much. I was so impressed yesterday watching them organize and creatively create what you see today. I really appreciate you all. I think that it would be helpful to give a little background who L. Frank Baum was. His book, The Wonderful Wizard of Oz, in the year 2000, which was the 100th anniversary of the publication in 1900, the Library of Congress declared The Wonderful Wizard of Oz to be America's greatest and best loved fantasy fairy tale. That's a pretty special thing. Let's see. I'll be reading from a couple of different sources, and these are short excerpts. In 1892, L. Frank Baum joined the Theosophical Society in Chicago. Theosophy must have had a powerful influence on the development of his imagination, because theosophy avows to the belief in a reality beyond the physical world, which includes spirits in the afterlife. Theosophy espouses universal brotherhood and sisterhood, and the importance of developing balance and harmony within oneself and in the world around. The focus of theosophy is the search for and discovery of truth. All of these are uplifting themes in The Wizard of Oz. He went to the Chicago World Expo in 1893, and the White City there was the inspiration for the Emerald City, 1893. And who lit up that white expo? No other than Nikola Tesla. It was the first all-electric fair in the world. A few more things. Baum's mother-in-law was a devout feminist leader who marched with Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, who founded the Women's National Liberal Union. The union was dedicated to the separation of church and state and focused on social reform. Baum was an advocate of women's suffrage, and he wrote extensively about the fundamental need for women's rights and marched alongside his wife and mother-in-law. He was quite a guy. The first principle we're going to be working with today, the first insight, is that fear blocks access to your intuitive wisdom. There's I want to clarify too, there's quite a bit of difference between the book published in 1900 and the film. They both are wonderful representations of the Wizard of Oz, but the storyline of the book takes very different paths than the film. But the film's a musical, and musicals and people who make films about books oftentimes take different paths. But the thing that I wanted to point out is that the film starts off, as you remember, with a very bleak look at Kansas, and so does the book. And Dorothy is very upset because this woman, Mrs. Gulch, I think her name is wants to take her dog Toto and have him destroyed. And her aunt and uncle don't want to bother with Dorothy yelling and screaming. And then these the workmen are trying to tell her to calm down. You got to be better behaved, acting like that. The book doesn't start like this at all. All that is made up. The book starts out with Baum describing Dorothy Gale as a very happy child. She's an orphan, and she lives with her uncle and her Aunt Em, but she is a delightfully happy child. She doesn't complain about anything. As a matter of fact, Aunt Em is just awestruck by how happy this child is, and she laughs all the time and plays with her dog. So then the cyclone comes. When the cyclone comes, they changed that setting a little bit in the film. They had a place for them to all go to protect themselves from the cyclone, which was separate from the house. But in the book, it was a basement built under the house, and they had a trap door, and they went inside. That's a moot point. The thing about it that is really significant, though, is in the film, Dorothy gets hit on the head by an unhinged window that's blown off of its frame, and it knocks her unconscious as she's traveling through the land of Oz. That didn't happen in the book. What happens in the book is that Dorothy becomes frightened, and she moves into a state of fear, which is our first insight. Because what she does is she accesses her intuitive wisdom and says to herself, I'm really afraid. Toto, I'm afraid. But I think we just need to relax and be calm, and let's just see what comes. And she falls into a deep meditation and then sleep. And then she's transported to the land of Oz. Now, remaining calm and actualizing positive expectancy, which is part of this first insight, didn't come easy for me because I was raised in an Italian family, and Italian families are not calm. They are anything but that. I mean, everyone's yelling over each other, and people are very emotional, but calm, being low-key, relaxed, serene, peaceful, still, that's my goal. to be in those states at this particular time in my life. Insight number 2, listening to the right voice creates hope and inspiration. In the film, something magical happens between Glinda and Dorothy when Dorothy arrives in the land of Oz. That doesn't happen in the film. Glinda gives Dorothy a kiss on the forehead. She does it in the film, but she says something that comforts Dorothy and helps her on her journey to the land of Oz to see the wizard. She says, "No one will dare harm a person who has been kissed by the Witch of the North. You're protected on your journey." Very different. Beautiful. Isn't that something we would want our parents to tell us during our years of growing up, telling the daughter and your son, you're protected. And when I kiss you on the forehead or I kiss you on the cheek, you're protected in your life. Nothing is going to bring harm to you. What wonderful, consoling words. Also, what Glinda does, which she does in the film, is she gives her a pair of ruby red shoes. But in the original book, they are actually silver. The producers of The Wizard of Oz wanted the shoes to stand out, so they made them red. They're also, if you can believe this, how beautiful is this song that Mary and Wayne just sang? Well, it's the American Film Institute regards it as the greatest song ever in film history. The producers were going to take it out of the film. They didn't even want this song in there. So there were 3 producers, 2 men and 1 woman. The woman producer, I don't remember her name. I don't remember the men's producers' names either. She stood firm and said, no, this song stays in the film. It's a beautiful song. But they didn't like how it was coming off with being sung by Judy Garland, but it stayed in the film. Our third insight, feeling safe and developing trust are fundamental to your inner peace. So the question I always ask when I see someone in a counseling situation is, how safe did you feel in your home growing up? Safety is really important. And you can imagine even more now what's going on in the world. We don't feel very safe. I mean, look at us all. We're wearing masks. We wear masks almost everywhere we go, unless if we're of a different persuasion. So feeling safe is fundamental. Abraham Maslow said it is fundamental. It's an essential need. And developing trust naturally follows safety. If you don't feel safe consistently over time, because your parents have had to be consistently attentive and help you to feel safe for you to then develop trust. So those 2 are essential in our lives. Fourth insight, you're blessed with a miracle brain. This takes us to the Dorothy's journey on the yellow brick road. Glinda tells her, I understand you want to go home. The Wizard of Oz will most likely help you. You've got your ruby red shoes. You've got my kiss on the forehead. Just take yourself to see the wizard. Well, when Scarecrow said, I don't have a brain, I want a brain, what he didn't realize, the complexity of this brain we have. When I was reading the numbers, I was astounded. 100 billion nerve cells, 100 trillion connections of these nerve cells, supported by 400 miles of blood vessels. Imagine that, 400 miles of blood vessels. That would take us all the way from, Santa Barbara to San Francisco is about, 250 miles? And we have to go another 150 miles more, maybe up to Mendocino. From Santa Barbara to Mendocino, the amount of blood vessels in our brain. This remarkable communication system controls, coordinates, regulates all physical and mental activities we perform every single day. The senses of sight, sound, touch, feeling, taste, smell, kinesthesia are all part of the brain's activity. Scarecrow wants a mind that can assess situation, figure things out, make good and healthy decisions. That's what he really wants. Insight number 5. When your heart is open, you radiate an inner magnetism that draws good things to you. Scarecrow and Dorothy move on, and they find this Tin Man in the middle of the woods, and he is frozen. He's frozen because, one, no one has spoken to him or helped him in a year. He's been standing there for a year, and he's been grunting, and no one has responded except Dorothy and the Scarecrow. And all he wants, the Tin Man, is to have a heart so he can love again. This was not emphasized in the film. It's emphasized in Baum's book. He says, I was so in love with this Munchkin girl, and the relationship fell apart. And all I want is to have a heart so I can love again. Because he believes he doesn't have a heart, as Scarecrow believes he doesn't have a brain. And in his desire for love, there's no blame, there's no guilt, there's no anger, there's no fear. He just wants to love again, compassionately, respectfully, honestly, intimately. Insight number 6. Instead of making a change, do something truly inspiring and take a quantum leap. There is a part of the story, the three of them are on, or the two of them, the three of them are on the yellow brick road, because we haven't gotten to the lion yet, but the three of them are on the yellow brick road. And they come to a ditch. And this ditch is so wide and so deep that they are now stuck, and they can't pursue going to the Emerald City. And so they look at each other, and they all decide, well, I guess our journey has come to an end because we can't get beyond this ditch. It's probably about 12 or 15 feet wide. So the lion, who says that he doesn't have courage and calls himself a coward, he says, I think I can leap over it. And so then Scarecrow, who doesn't have a brain, says, you know, if you can leap over it, you can take one of us on your back, one at a time, and get us over to the other side. And so first they take Dorothy, and there's a fabulous picture that was drawn by W.W. Denslow. I haven't spoken about him yet, but W.W. Denslow is the artist. He's the one who created 160 pictures. He took the imagination of Baum and created 160 colorful pictures to move this story forward. So anyway, the lion takes each one of them one at a time, and they leap over this big ditch, and they get over to the other side. But once they get to the other side, and this also isn't in the film, there's a raging river that they have to get across, and they don't know how they're going to get across this river. So Tin Man says, well, how about if I cut some trees down and I'll build a raft? They're working in this very democratic way. It's quite lovely to see. So they all say, great, if you could build that raft, if you can cut the wood, we'll build the raft. And then the lion says, and I'll jump in the water. You hold my tail and I'll pull all of us across. And they do that. So I would encourage you, read the original book. It's just filled with fabulous stories that never made it into the film. And then they get off to the other side. So in the film, they miss these two great stories because what these stories depict is that the scarecrow already has a full functioning brain. The lion is full of courage, and Tin Man already has a loving and compassionate spirit. They have everything within them before they ever get to Oz. But their belief system is that they lack all of these things. So the other piece is that Dorothy, yes, she does see the lion. He comes out, he's barking, or not barking, he's growling at them. She slaps him on the snout, both in the book. And then he joins them as they all travel to the land of Oz, and he wants courage. Insight number 7, life diminishes or unfolds in proportion to the strength of your courage. This was really poorly represented in the film. The Wicked Witch sends the flying monkeys to pick up and capture all of them and to take them to her castle. She particularly wants Dorothy because Dorothy's got the shoes that she wants. And because she knows that if she can get the ruby red shoes, she'll be the most powerful witch in all the land of Oz, even more powerful than the wizard. But we find out the wizard has no power at all. In the film, what they do, if you remember, the scarecrow is beaten up. They pull out his straw. They beat up the lion. They smash up the Tin Man, but they pick up Dorothy and they take her to the witch's castle. The way the screenwriters wrote this, and it had something to do with women's power, they decided that the Tin Man, the lion, and the scarecrow were going to save Dorothy in the castle. But what happens is Dorothy saves them. They turn it around. They didn't want Dorothy to save them. So what happens in the castle is, so that scene where they're running through the castle and they're trying to get away from the witch and the Winkies and the flying monkeys, and the witch lights the scarecrow on fire, and Dorothy inadvertently throws the water on the witch and she melts. That never happens. What really happens is that Dorothy steps into her power in that castle. The witch steals one of her shoes. Dorothy demands that shoe back. She says, I want that shoe. And the witch says, not only am I going to take this shoe, I'm going to take your other one too, and you're going to be my slave for the rest of your life. Dorothy, outraged, sees a bucket of water and she throws it on the witch, faces her, and the witch melts. Dorothy wins her freedom. Why they left that out of the film, I don't know. It's a fabulous scene. So the lion is being held captive in the courtyard. Dorothy then takes control of the Winkies and the flying monkeys. They all bow to her. She's now ahead of Oz, the whole kingdom. And so the Winkies help her. They find the scarecrow. They take him to and mend him. They find a tinsmith and they hammer out all the dents in the Tin Man. And then she saves the lion who is chained in the courtyard. And then they go see the Wizard of Oz. Insight number 8. You possess the remarkable ability to transcend time. If you notice in the film, they're operating in 3 time zones all the time. they're in present time, journeying to Oz, but they're also in future time because they're thinking about, we're going to go see the wizard and he's going to help us. But Dorothy's also in past time because she remembers where she lived and she wants to be back home to where she was. Scarecrow talks about not having a brain in past time. He wants a brain in present time, and he's going to see the wizard in future time who's going to help them get a brain. So the eighth insight is that we possess the remarkable ability to transcend time. And time travel can be joyous. It can be stressful. It depends on the imagery and the imagination that we entertain. Milton Erickson, MD, marvelous physician who was the founder of medical hypnosis, he said hypnosis isn't about putting a person into a trance. Hypnosis is about taking a person out of the trance they're already in. Because that's basically what we do. We put ourselves in these different trance states: anger, depression, blame, joy, ecstasy. These are all trance states according to Milton Erickson. And I've come to see how much that works. It works very well when you're doing seminars or therapy work to see the different trance states people put themselves into. So we have this ability, this remarkable ability. We can be in past time, thinking about all these things that happened to us in the past that aren't good, but we can also erase that and go back in time about all the wonderful things that happened to us as we were growing up. One of the things I always have people I work with do is create a highlight journal, highlight and go through different 10-year segments, decades of your life, and highlight all the great things that happened to you, and do that all the way up to present time. So yes, this is a remarkable ability that we have. And then the last insight is about imagination. And I want to read you a little excerpt about what L. Frank Baum said about imagination. Imagination is one of the greatest factors and forces in human progress. Stunt, dwarf, or destroy the imagination of a child, and you have taken away its chances of success in life. Imagination transforms the commonplace into the great and creates the new out of the old. No man has ever made a new invention or discovery without imagination, and invention and discovery have made imagination progress. With insight number 9, imagination is always your way out of whatever is making you feel stuck. Our beliefs are determined by the stories that we tell ourselves. Dorothy fears she's stuck in Oz. Scarecrow fears he doesn't have a brain. The Tin Woodman cries he has lost his heart, and Lion fears he's a coward. Each of them believes that the Wizard of Oz will bring about their healing. But the truth is, their healing and grace arise from the help that they compassionately give to each other. It arises from the power and inspiration of their vivid imaginations, from the sacred community they create, respectfully, lovingly, and harmoniously journeying together on the yellow brick road. Thank you.